bit too late for the current sale, but this video on the Pulsar X2A is also a case for mice with buttons on both sides. But it's really just me rambling. For the longest time, I've used the shortened and narrowed FK2 as I found the original shape too long for my liking, as it would dig under my palm as I tried to use it. So I figured the logical next step would be something like the cheetah, since it's a similar shape, but much smaller. But after getting the Keychron M4, I figured on smaller mice, I actually wanted them to be further back than on bigger mice. But after testing the MZ1, it reaffirmed my decision that the smaller the mouse is, the further back the hump needs to be, as this one's really locked in, and the hump is all the way at the back. Aside from price, after getting the Keychron M4, I decided to get mice with a more back-facing hump, which ruled out the cheetah from me. Although I still prefer the shape of the MZ1 to the X2A, this does feel more locked in, and this feels just a little too wide and just a little too large overall. Though, funnily enough, I forget which reviewer, but I saw a review of the MZ1 which described it as like the training wheels of mice, which I kind of used the 3D print as if it's training wheels, where I'll hold the 3D print to see how I hold it, and then I'll transfer the grip over to the X2A. I'm generally wondering if I should find a way to get the MZ1 shell and then transfer the internals of the X2A into it to see how it would function, as it would also allow me to get both sets of side buttons in the MZ1 shape. Between the X2A and the cheetah shape, I'm not entirely sure which one I prefer, as one both feel comfortable in their own way, whereas one feels a little on the small side and the other one's a little on the big side. Just like the Keychron, I can comfortably use this and even somewhat claw it. Whereas with this, I can definitely claw it. And just the hump just sticks into my hand a little too much for my taste. The MZ1 kind of sits in the middle, but to be absolutely sure, I have to try the lower hump. But overall, I prefer the grip width on the MZ1 and the length to both of these. The hump just sticks maybe a little bit too much to my palm. As far as buttons go, M1 and M2 are pretty crisp, but they're just a little bit on the mushy side. For the scroll wheel, the notches are a little pronounced. I wish they were more pronounced. They were more pronounced as when I got the mouse. They wore down over time, especially with how much I use the mouse wheel. Since scroll down is melee, like quick melee, if that's in the game, I use scroll down for it. And for me, scroll up is reload. So I end up using the scroll wheel a lot. So as a result, the notchiness really sanded down for my scroll wheel. It's a lot looser than when it started. The middle click is nice. It seems perfectly stiff enough, but I have accidentally clicked it sometimes, so I'm not entirely sure. It could just be about positioning, either my hand or the scroll wheel's positioning, especially since clicking it sideways is easier than clicking it straight on. But as far as the side buttons are concerned, they're way too mushy feeling. They're really hard to click, especially compared to other mice that I've used. The worst offender is the front right button, whereas on my old G Pro wireless, it was almost effortless to press. But on this one, it takes a lot of effort, which I don't quite like. Like sometimes where I feel like I've pressed it, I actually didn't, or I didn't press it in time to initiate the action, so that's kind of annoying. Oh, that's more prevalent in games like the finals to grab objects, and not really in something like Valorant. I'm using it to equip abilities. Now for the obligatory mouse button sound test. Though I prefer scrolls on the stiffer side, like the Keychron M4 is actually unironically one of my favorite scroll implementations. It's very stiff. For characters like Soldier 76, I use Biotic Field on browser back and then Alt on scroll wheel click. Animation canceling from biotic field to Alt is almost effortless. Like it's almost like a macro. Since the scroll wheel is so stiff to click, it's almost impossible to click it before I click browser back. Where on the X2A, it's a little easier to click scroll before browser back and to mess up the animation cancel combo, especially since how mushy the side buttons are. Really have to get the combo right with this mouse. As far as coding goes, I'm not the biggest fan. It reminds me of one comment I read about Zowie mice where it feels like bare PVC, where it's completely slippery unless our hands are sweaty. So if I just washed my hands and wiped the mouse down especially, then it just feels like a bar of soap until my hands actually start to get sweaty, which I'm not the biggest fan of. As you can see, I tend to put holes in my mice. When there's holes in my mice, I don't sweat like at all. So if the grip relies on me sweating, it becomes completely unholdable. For the side buttons in games like Apex Legends and the finals, which only have really one ability and an alt, or one active ability and an alt, I assign the front to sprint and the back to my ability, and then scroll wheel click to the alt, which I also use in games like Overwatch. The reason why I developed this is mostly because in Overwatch, every character has more or less two abilities that you have. And since sprint is one of Soldier's abilities, I bind the primary sprint to forwards and his healing station to the back. And I got really used to that, so I transfer that between games. But also in Warframe, I found that if I use shift to duck instead of sprint, I can go from a slide to a jump very quickly, from going from shift to space, from my clay shift to B. Another thing I adopted it in Overwatch is scroll wheel forwards is reload and scroll wheel back is quick melee. It's really nice to pull off really quick melees. Like when I blink melee, just blink melee. Although for Tracer specifically, alt isn't, instead of alt being on the middle click, it's the front side button. It recalls the back side button, and blink is the secondary fire. I don't have it currently implemented in this mouse, but I like having a third sort of sniper button that uses my interact key. I really like using that in games like Apex Legends to pick up loot, or to go on zip lines, or the finals, to just also go on zip lines. Stuff like res teammates, take cash outs and whatnot. For some reason, for me, it feels really natural to sort of aim around with my hand and then pick up loot using the same hand, like sort of grip my hand to pick up loot. Also for like zipline shenanigans and whatnot, to rapidly disconnect and reconnect, the side button feels really natural to do. For games like Overwatch with not that many abilities, I don't really use the right side button, besides for Mercy Res or Torbjorn Overload. For Mercy, I have the two main side buttons set up to Guardian Angel and switch weapons. And for Torbjorn, I have it set up to deploy turret and switch weapons. For the finals, in games similar to it, I find that having sprint on forwards, the ability on back, like healing gun or grapple, and then have the use key as like a sniper button allows me to be really mobile, since I can grapple and then connect to a pre-existing grapple hook, grapple line, or I can attach to the grapple line, then jump to maintain my momentum. And then I have the right side button that I use for grabbing at objects, which is really nice because I feel like I can be really mobile and really quickly pick up objects to throw, like gas canisters or whatnot. I think that'd be cool is the ability to remap the DPI button, so I can see if I can test around with the positioning of the back button over here, like the right hand back button, to put it into a better position so I can actuate it with my pinky.